You wore the bracelet! That means we're lifelong partners now! The alien girl panicked. Alan Reed stifled another yawn as he walked alongside his charge through the gleaming corridors of the stellar embassy on Nutera. As a private security contractor, he'd handled countless escort missions, but this one was proving to be particularly mundane. The alien dignitary he was protecting, Lady Thalia, moved with an otherworldly grace that made his heavy combat boots sound even clunkier in comparison. "Are you finding our tour tedious, Mr. Reed?" Thalia's melodic voice carried a hint of amusement. Her emerald skin seemed to shimmer under the ambient lighting, and her golden flecked green eyes studied him with interest. "Not at all, Lady Thalia," Alan lied smoothly, adjusting the plasma rifle slung across his chest. His modified combat armor, complete with its array of defensive tech, felt unnecessarily heavy for such a routine assignment. "Just ensuring your safety." "Such dedication," she teased, her long dark hair cascading over her shoulders as she turned to examine another piece of artwork. "Though I suspect escorting a verdant diplomat through an art exhibition wasn't quite what you had in mind when you signed up for this job." Alan grinned despite himself. He had to admit, for an alien, she had a good read on humans. "I prefer a bit more action, yes, but sometimes quiet is good." "Quiet can be deceptive," Thalia replied, absently toying with one of the ornate bracelets adorning her wrist. The ancient-looking piece caught Alan's attention. Intricate patterns were etched into its surface, and what appeared to be precious stones glinted invitingly. "That's an interesting piece," he commented, genuinely curious. "May I?" Thalia hesitated for a moment and then slipped off the bracelet. "Be careful with it. It's a family heirloom?" Alan took the bracelet, admiring its craftsmanship. The metal felt warm to the touch, and the patterns seemed to shift slightly under his gaze. Without really thinking about it, he slipped it onto his own wrist. "How do I look?" Thalia's eyes widened in horror. "No, don't." Too late. The bracelet suddenly pulsed with an inner light, contracting around his wrist until it fit snugly. A strange tingling sensation raced up his arm, and Alan felt an odd connection form in his mind. "What the hell?" He tugged at the bracelet, but it wouldn't budge. "How do I get this thing off?" "You can't," Thalia whispered, her face a mask of panic. "That's not just jewelry. It's a verdant bonding artifact. By putting it on, you've initiated a lifelong partnership ritual. We're now bound together." Alan stared at her, then at the bracelet, then back at her. "You're joking, right? This is some kind of alien humor?" "I assure you, this is no joke," Thalia said, wringing her hands. "That bracelet is thousands of years old, created by my ancestors to forge unbreakable bonds between mates. It's supposed to be used in formal ceremonies, with both parties consenting." "Well, unconsented?" Alan growled, still trying to pry the bracelet loose. "I'm not looking to get alien married today." "It's not that simple," Thalia explained, her voice rising with anxiety. "The bond is both physical and psychological. Breaking it incorrectly could harm us both. We need to find the proper ritual to safely dissolve it." Alan ran his free hand through his short blonde hair, fighting down a surge of panic. Okay, let's think this through. Where do we need to go to fix this?" "The closest temple with the necessary knowledge would be on Verdant Prime," Thalia said, "but it's 3 sectors away, and I'm supposed to be at the diplomatic summit tomorrow." "Lady Thalia," Alan said with forced calm, "with all due respect to your diplomatic duties, I think this takes precedence. Unless you want to explain to the summit why you're suddenly bonded to your human security guard?" Thalia's emerald skin darkened slightly. Was that a blush? "You're right, of course. We'll need to leave immediately. I'll make arrangements for a ship." As they hurried toward the embassy's landing pad, Alan couldn't help but notice that the bracelet felt surprisingly comfortable on his wrist. And was it his imagination? Or could he sense Thalia's presence in the back of his mind? This was definitely not how he'd expected his day to go. The sleek diplomatic shuttle cut through space, its quantum engines humming quietly as it carried Alan and Thalia away from Nutera. Alan sat in the co-pilot seat, still occasionally tugging at the bracelet that refused to budge from his wrist. Through their newfound connection, he could sense Thalia's mixture of anxiety and something else he couldn't quite identify. "The bond will grow stronger," Thalia said softly, her fingers dancing over the navigation console. "It's designed to foster intimacy between partners. Already you can feel my emotions, can't you?" Alan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Yeah, it's different. Like having background music in my head, except instead of music, it's, you. Thalia's lips curved into a slight smile. An interesting analogy. For verdant couples, the bonding process is usually gradual, carefully controlled through ancient rituals. This accelerated version might be more intense. How intense are we talking about? Alan asked, trying to ignore the way the cabin's lighting made her emerald skin glow. Had she always been this captivating, or was it the bond affecting his perception? Before Thalia could answer, the shuttle's warning systems blared to life. Red warning lights flooded the cabin as the quantum drive began to fluctuate wildly. That's not good, Alan muttered, scanning the readouts. The drive's destabilizing. We need to drop out of FTL. Thalia's hands flew over the controls. Something's interfering with the quantum field. Initiating emergency protocols. The shuttle shuddered violently as it decelerated, the stars ahead of them transforming from streaks back into points of light. They found themselves in an unfamiliar system, a massive gas giant looming before them. Where are we? Alan asked, checking their position. Off course, Thalia replied, frowning at the navigation display. We're in unclaimed space, at least 3 jumps from the nearest mapped system. Oh, the quantum drive is completely offline. Alan ran a diagnostic. The containment field is shot. We'll need to land somewhere for repairs. He gestured toward a small moon orbiting the gas giant. That looks promising. Atmosphere's thin but breathable. Gravity at 0.8 standard. As they approached the moon, Alan became increasingly aware of Thalia's presence in his mind. The bond was definitely growing stronger, bringing with it waves of attraction that he suspected weren't entirely his own. Or were they? It was becoming harder to tell where his feelings ended and hers began. The landing was rougher than intended, the shuttle's backup thrusters barely managing to slow their descent enough for a safe touchdown. They ended up on a rocky plateau overlooking a vast purple-hued valley. The good news is, most of the systems are intact, Alan said, reviewing the damage report. The bad news is, the quantum drive needs a complete realignment. We're looking at least 12 hours of repairs. 12 hours? Thalia's voice carried a note of concern that had nothing to do with their mechanical problems. The bond will continue to strengthen during that time. Alan turned to face her, suddenly very aware of how close they were in the shuttle's cockpit. Is that why you're worried? Or is it because you can feel what I'm feeling right now? Thalia's golden-flecked eyes met his. Among my people, the bonding process is sacred. It's meant to join 2 souls completely, physically and spiritually. What's happening between us? She trailed off, her emerald skin darkening slightly. Is it always this intense? Alan asked, his voice dropping to a lower register. No, she whispered. The traditional bonding takes weeks, with carefully controlled stages. This accelerated version is affecting us both more strongly than I anticipated. The attraction between them was becoming palpable, an electric tension that filled the small space. Through their connection, Alan could feel Thalia's desire mirroring his own, creating a feedback loop that intensified their mutual attraction. We should start the repairs, Alan said, though he made no move to leave his seat. Yes, we should, Thalia agreed, equally motionless. Instead, they found themselves drawing closer, the bond pulling them together like gravity itself. Their first kiss was tentative, experimental, but the second was anything but. The connection between them exploded with sensation, their shared emotions amplifying every touch, every caress. Hours later, as they lay together in the shuttle's small crew quarters, Alan traced patterns on Thalia's emerald skin. So, that happened? Thalia laughed softly, the sound like music in both his ears and mine. Indeed it did. Among my people, this would be considered quite scandalous, completing a bond so quickly, and with an alien no less. Having second thoughts? Alan asked, though their connection told him otherwise. No, she replied, turning to face him. The bond doesn't create feelings that aren't there, Alan. It only amplifies what already exists. What we shared was real. Good, he said, pulling her closer, because I'm starting to think this bracelet might not be such a bad thing after all. Alan was in the middle of realigning the quantum drive's core matrix when the proximity alarm blared through the shuttle's speakers. He quickly slid out from under the maintenance panel, his security training kicking in as he grabbed his plasma rifle. Through their strengthening bond, he felt Thalia's sudden spike of concern before she called out from the cockpit. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL. Their energy signatures matched known scavenger vessels. Perfect timing, Alan muttered, moving to the viewport. The approaching ships were a motley collection of cobbled-together hulls, the trademark of deep space scavengers who preyed on stranded vessels. "Can we get the drive online?" "Not for another 4 hours at least," Thalia replied, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Our emergency beacon, they must have detected it." Alan felt a surge of protectiveness through their bond. Since their intimate encounter hours earlier, their connection had grown exponentially stronger. He could now sense not just Thalia's emotions, but fragments of her thoughts as well. "We need to move the shuttle," he said, already formulating a plan. "That ridge to the north has several caves. We can conceal ourselves there." Thalia nodded, firing up the maneuvering thrusters. The shuttle lifted shakily, its damaged systems protesting as they guided it into a large cave opening. The natural rock formation would help mask their thermal signature. As they powered down the non-essential systems, Alan felt Thalia's hand slip into his. The contact sent a pleasant shiver through their shared connection. "Your mind is so focused right now," she observed. "Is this what human warriors feel in battle?" "Part training, part instinct," he replied, squeezing her hand. "Though I have to admit, having you in my head is pretty distracting." A slight darkening of her emerald skin, that telltale blush he was growing fond of, preceded her response. "The bond is affecting us both in unexpected ways. My people's warriors train for years to maintain emotional discipline during combat, yet your human adaptability is remarkable." The scavenger ships were now visible through the cave mouth, their searchlights sweeping the moon's surface. Alan guided Thalia deeper into the cave, where they'd be better hidden. The close quarters and shared adrenaline made their physical attraction flare up again, but they both pushed it aside, mostly. "Tell me about these scavengers," Alan whispered, keeping his rifle ready. "What are we dealing with?" "Outcasts, mostly. Beings who've rejected or been rejected by civilized space. They die." Thalia suddenly tensed, her eyes widening. Through their bond, Alan felt her recognition. "By the first light, I know that ship design. Those are Crimson Claw scavengers. Friends of yours?" "Quite the opposite. They're a splinter group that broke away from my people centuries ago. They reject our traditions, our bonds." She touched the bracelet on Alan's wrist. "They believe our reliance on emotional connections makes us weak." "Sounds like a fun bunch," Alan quipped, but he could feel Thalia's genuine fear. "Hey, look at me." When their eyes met, he projected as much confidence as he could through their bond. "We're getting out of this together." The intensity of their shared emotions in that moment nearly overwhelmed them both. Without conscious thought, they found themselves drawing closer, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. The bond sang between them, temporarily drowning out their dire situation with waves of desire and something deeper, something neither was ready to name yet. A distant explosion snapped them back to reality. The scavengers had found their landing site and were now methodically searching the area. Through the cave's twisting passages, they could hear the sound of approaching vehicles. "They're using ground transport," Alan observed, checking his weapon. "Smart. The caves would mess with their ship's sensors." "No, the Crimson Claws won't just salvage our shuttle," Thalia said, her voice tight. "If they find us, they'll want to study our bond. Their scientists have been trying to replicate our bonding artifacts for generations, without success." Alan felt a cold anger rise at the thought of anyone trying to experiment on their connection. The bond amplified his protective instincts, making them almost overwhelming. "Not happening. We need to move deeper into the caves, find another way out." As they carefully made their way through the tunnel system, Alan noticed something odd about their surroundings. The walls were too smooth in places, the angles too precise. "These aren't natural formations," he whispered. "Someone built these tunnels." Thalia ran her hand along one of the walls, her eyes widening. "These patterns, they're similar to the ones on the bracelet. Alan, I think we've stumbled into something significant." Before they could explore further, the sound of approaching voices echoed through the tunnels. The scavengers were getting closer. Alan pulled Thalia into a narrow side passage, their bodies pressed close in the confined space. The physical contact made their bond flare again, and they both had to fight to keep their thoughts focused on survival rather than more pleasant activities. 6 of them coming this way, Alan whispered, reading the life signs on his armor's scanner. Heavy weapons, but they're bunched up tight. One good ambush could even the odds. Thalia's mind brushed against his, sharing tactical knowledge she'd absorbed through their bond. These tunnels amplify sound. If we can draw them past that intersection... Her thought didn't need completing. Alan already saw the strategy in her mind. They moved silently through the passages, their shared consciousness making them work together with perfect coordination. As they prepared their trap, Alan couldn't help but marvel at how quickly they'd adapted to fighting as one. The bond that had started as an accident was quickly becoming their greatest advantage. Everything went sideways the moment the first plasma bolt sizzled past Alan's head. The ambush had been perfect, until one of the scavengers triggered some kind of ancient security system in the tunnels. Suddenly, the walls themselves came alive with pulsing light patterns, identical to those on the bracelet. "Run!" Alan grabbed Thalia's hand as they sprinted deeper into the tunnel network. Their pursuers' heavy boots echoed behind them, mixed with angry shouts in multiple languages. Through their bond, Alan felt Thalia's racing thoughts matching his own heightened awareness. Turning every intersection, every shadow became a tactical decision they made together without speaking. Their shared consciousness gave them an edge, letting them move as one through the labyrinth. "They're hurting us," Thalia projected through their connection. "These tunnels, they're responding to the bracelet somehow." She was right. Each time they approached a junction, certain passages would illuminate while others darkened. The ancient security system wasn't just active, it was directing their path. "Got any better idea?" Alan sent back, his thoughts tinged with both adrenaline and an inappropriate flash of desire as they pressed close together behind a corner. The bond amplified everything, making it hard to separate survival instincts from more primal urges. A plasma bolt struck the wall near them, sending crystalline shards flying. Alan pulled Thalia into a side passage just as the tunnel behind them sealed itself with a crystalline barrier. "That's new," he muttered, watching the crystal rapidly grow across the opening. Thalia touched the surface, her eyes widening. "This material, it's similar to what our bonding artifacts are made from. Alan, I don't think these tunnels are just ruins. This might be where my people's bonding technology originated." The pursuing voices grew louder, accompanied by the sound of cutting tools working on the crystal barrier. They didn't have much time. The only way forward led down a spiral ramp that descended deep into the moon's crust. As they ran, the air grew warmer, and the light patterns on the walls became more intricate. Their bond seemed to strengthen with each step deeper, making their thoughts flow together more seamlessly. "The bracelet," Thalia gasped as they ran. "It's resonating with something below us. These tunnels aren't just a security system, they're a test." "A test for what?" Before she could answer, the ramp ended in a vast circular chamber. Crystalline columns rose from floor to ceiling, each pulsing with the same energy that flowed through their bond. At the center stood a raised platform with 2 indentations that looked suspiciously like handprints. The sound of pursuit was growing closer again. They had maybe minutes before the scavengers found a way around the barriers. "Well," Alan said, eyeing the platform, "I guess we're about to find out what we're being tested for." They approached the platform together, their steps perfectly synchronized through their shared consciousness. The bracelet on Alan's wrist was now glowing brightly enough to cast shadows. "Whatever happens," Thalia said, turning to face him, "I want you to know that I don't regret this bond anymore, even if it started as an accident." Alan pulled her close, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss that sent waves of shared sensation through their connection. The chamber's crystals pulsed in rhythm with their racing hearts. "Neither do I," he whispered against her mouth, ready to face whatever this is together. They placed their hands on the platform simultaneously. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy surged through them both, and their bond exploded into something far deeper than before. Every barrier between their minds fell away, leaving them completely open to each other. In that moment of total connection, they shared everything, every memory, every desire, every secret fear and hope. Alan saw Thalia's childhood on her homeworld, felt her loneliness as a diplomat among aliens. Thalia experienced his years of military service, his search for purpose beyond following orders. The chamber's crystals blazed with light, and ancient holographic symbols appeared in the air around them. Thalia gasped as she recognized them. "These are the original bonding protocol," she said in awe. "The complete, unaltered version of what my people used to create the artifacts. Alan, this is incredible. The legends say our ancestors found this technology, but this proves they discovered it already fully formed." "That's fascinating," Alan replied, still holding her close. "But maybe we should focus on the angry scavengers about to break through." As if in response to his words, the chamber itself began to transform. The crystals shifted and flowed like liquid, forming new passages and sealing old ones. Through their enhanced bond, they both somehow understood. The chamber was offering them escape routes, tested and proven safe by countless bonded pairs before them. They chose a path together, their shared consciousness making the decision natural and instant. As they ran through the new tunnel, they could feel their connection continuing to evolve. The bond was no longer just emotional or mental. It was becoming something transcendent, something their pursuers could never hope to understand. Behind them, they heard frustrated shouts as the scavengers found their way, blocked by more crystal barriers. Ahead, their path sloped upward, leading them back toward the surface, but in a different location than where they had entered. "The shuttle," they thought simultaneously. Their minds now so in sync it was hard to tell who had the idea first. "If we can reach it before them." Their enhanced bond made them perfectly coordinated as they ran, each anticipating the other's movements. When they had to climb, their hands found holes without hesitation. When they needed to hide, they moved as one into the shadows. The tunnel finally emerged onto the moon's surface, far from their original landing site. Through their connection, they shared a moment of triumph as they spotted their shuttle, still concealed in its cave but accessible from their new position. But their celebration was premature. A harsh voice cut through the thin atmosphere. "Don't move, bondmates!" A squad of heavily armed scavengers emerged from behind rocky outcroppings, weapons trained on them. Their leader, a scarred, verdant male with cybernetic implants, stepped forward. "You've led us right to what we've been searching for. Now you're going to help us understand exactly how these bonds work." Time seemed to slow as Alan and Thalia faced the scavengers. Through their enhanced bond, they shared not just thoughts but pure instinct, years of combat training and diplomatic experience flowing together into a perfect synthesis. "Last chance," the scarred leader growled. "Surrender, and we'll make your dissection quick." Alan felt Thalia's mental smirk match his own. Their shared consciousness had already formulated a plan, their bodies tensing in perfect synchronization. "You know," Alan drawled, "for someone so interested in bonds..." He let his hand brush against Thalia's, sending a surge of energy through their connection. "You really don't understand them at all." They moved as one. The bracelet on Alan's wrist flared with brilliant light, momentarily blinding their attackers. In that split second, Thalia dropped and rolled, while Alan vaulted over her, his plasma rifle already firing. Their movements were a deadly dance, each step and shot coordinated through their bond with inhuman precision. The scavengers' superior numbers meant nothing against their perfect teamwork. When one scavenger rushed Thalia with a vibro blade, Alan was already there, using her momentum to flip the attacker over his shoulder. When another tried to flank Alan, Thalia's leg sweep sent them sprawling into their companions. "Impossible," the leader snarled, his cybernetic eye whirring as he analyzed their movements. No bond could synchronize two beings this perfectly. But it wasn't just synchronization. Their enhanced connection had evolved into something unprecedented. They fought not as two coordinated individuals, but as a single consciousness operating two bodies. Every punch, every dodge, every shot was calculated with shared battle instincts and executed with fluid grace. The scavengers' formation broke under their assault. These outcasts, who had rejected the very concept of emotional bonds, couldn't comprehend the advantage such a deep connection provided in combat. Through their bond, Alan felt Thalia's exhilaration matching his own. The thrill of battle, amplified by their shared consciousness, created an intoxicating feedback loop of heightened awareness and attraction. Each successful move, each perfect coordination, only intensified their connection. The leader, realizing his disadvantage, activated some sort of personal shield and charged directly at them. But their bond had anticipated this move before he even made it. Thalia dropped to one knee, providing a platform for Alan to launch himself over the shield's edge. As he descended, Thalia swept the leader's legs, disrupting his balance at the exact moment Alan's boot connected with his cybernetic implants. The remaining scavengers, seeing their leader fall, broke ranks and fled. Their retreat, however, wasn't completely chaotic. They were regrouping for another attack. "The shuttle!" Thalia's thought merged with Alan's. "Now!" They sprinted for their vessel, their enhanced bond allowing them to cover each other perfectly. When one needed to reload, the other was already providing covering fire. When one had to dodge, the other was creating a distraction. Reaching the shuttle's hatch, they encountered another surprise. The scavengers had sabotaged the manual controls, requiring both of them to work on bypassing the lock while maintaining defense against sporadic plasma fire. "You know," Alan grunted as he rerouted power circuits while Thalia covered him. "This isn't exactly how I imagined our first date going." Thalia's laughter echoed both in his ears and mind. "Oh? And what did you imagine?" "Less plasma fire, for starters." The hatch clicked open. "Maybe dinner, dancing?" "How disappointingly conventional," she teased as they secured the entrance behind them. Through their bond, he felt her pulse quicken, with both adrenaline and attraction. "I find this much more stimulating." They rushed to the cockpit, working in perfect tandem to bring the shuttle systems online. The quantum drive was still offline, but the conventional engines responded. As they lifted off, the scavengers made one last desperate attempt, their weapons fire harmlessly dispersing against the shuttle's shields. Breaking atmosphere, they set course for the system's edge, where they could safely work on repairs. Only then did they allow themselves to relax, the combat high slowly fading, but leaving their enhanced connection humming with energy. "That was," Thalia began. "Amazing," Alan finished, turning to face her. The bond between them was practically singing with shared emotion and desire. Their eyes met, gold-flecked green meeting intense blue, and the remaining distance between them vanished. This kiss was different from their previous ones, deeper, more intense, fueled by both the lingering battle excitement and their strengthened connection. Through their bond, every sensation was shared and amplified. Each touch, each caress resonated between them in an endless feedback loop of pleasure. Their enhanced connection made them perfectly attuned to each other's desires, transforming their intimate encounter into something transcendent. Hours later, as they lay together in the shuttle's small cabin, their bond had settled into a warm, contented hum. The bracelet on Alan's wrist glowed softly, its patterns seeming to pulse in rhythm with their shared heartbeat. "I think I understand now," Thalia murmured, tracing the patterns on the bracelet. "Why the ancient facility tested us. These bonds weren't just meant for marriage or partnership. They were designed to create perfect teams. Warriors, explorers, leaders who could act as one. And we passed the test," Alan added, pulling her closer. "But what does that mean for us now? We still need to reach Verdant Prime to remove the bracelet." Thalia propped herself up on one elbow, her expression serious. "Do you still want to remove it after everything we've experienced?" Alan was silent for a moment, examining his own feelings through their connection. "I thought I did, but now I'm not so sure. This bond, what we have, it's becoming something I don't want to lose." The quantum drive hummed back to life, just as the emergency transmission from Verdant Prime reached their shuttle. Through their enhanced bond, Alan felt Thalia's shock before she even opened the message. "It's from the High Council," she whispered, her emerald fingers trembling slightly over the controls. "Priority 1 clearance." Alan moved behind her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Their connection thrummed with shared anticipation as the holographic message materialized before them. The stern face of High Counselor Renax filled the cabin. His traditional ceremonial robes couldn't hide his obvious agitation. "Lady Thalia, our sensors detected your bonding signature's evolution. The ancient protocols have been awakened. You and your human partner must return to Verdant Prime immediately. What you've discovered, it changes everything we thought we knew about our heritage." The message continued, revealing a truth that left them both stunned. The Verdant people hadn't created the bonding artifacts at all. They were remnants of an ancient species that had achieved perfect unity through paired consciousness, only to vanish mysteriously at the height of their civilization. "The bracelets," Renax explained, "were never meant to be mere marriage bonds. They were designed to create perfect partnerships. Warriors, explorers, leaders who could act as one. But over millennia, we forgot their true purpose, using them only for their most basic function. Through their connection, Alan felt Thalia's mind racing, connecting dots he couldn't yet see. The ancient facility, she breathed. It wasn't just testing us, it was restoring the original programming. Precisely, Renax confirmed. You two are the first pair in thousands of years to achieve the full potential of the bond. The Council needs to study your connection, to understand. The transmission suddenly cut off, replaced by static. Warning lights flashed across the shuttle's console. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, Alan announced, his security training kicking in. Big ones. Through their viewport, 3 massive vessels materialized. Their design was unlike anything either of them had seen before. Organic curves mixed with crystalline structures that pulsed with familiar energy patterns. Those patterns, Thalia gasped. They're the same as the bracelet, they finished together, their enhanced bond humming with recognition. A new transmission cut through their communications, this one using frequencies that resonated directly with their bond. The language was ancient, but somehow, through their connection, they understood. The trial is complete. The worthy have emerged. The voice belonged to a being whose holographic form defied easy description. Crystalline and organic elements merged in a way that suggested both incredible age and advanced evolution. We are the guardians, it continued. We seeded the galaxy with our bonding technology, waiting for species capable of achieving true unity. Your partnership has proven that humans and verdants together have this potential. Alan and Thalia shared a glance, their bond conveying volumes of unspoken communication. Through their connection, they could feel the truth of the Guardian's words. Your bond, the Guardian explained, is more than a simple joining of minds. It is the key to unlocking abilities your peoples have only dreamed of. The facility you discovered was one of many placed throughout the galaxy. Each holds different aspects of our legacy, waiting for worthy pairs to claim them. The implications staggered them both. Through their bond, they shared the same realization. Their accidental connection had stumbled upon something far greater than either of their civilizations had imagined. But why reveal yourselves now? Thalia asked, though through their bond, Alan suspected they both knew the answer. Because you chose each other, the Guardian replied, not out of duty or tradition, but through genuine connection. Your bond evolved not because of the bracelet's power, but because of your natural compatibility. The technology merely enabled what was already possible between you. Alan felt Thalia's emotions surge through their connection, joy, excitement, and something deeper that made his heart race. He pulled her closer, their bodies fitting together as perfectly as their minds. We offer you a choice, the Guardian continued. You may return to your peoples with the knowledge you've gained, or you may join us. Become the first of a new generation of bonded pairs, exploring the full potential of what you could become together. The weight of the decision pressed against their shared consciousness. Through their bond, they explored each other's thoughts and feelings, finding their desires perfectly aligned. What about the bracelet? Alan asked, though he already knew he no longer wanted it removed. The Guardian's form shimmered with what might have been amusement. The physical bracelet was never more than a key. Your true bond now exists independent of it. You could remove it today and your connection would remain. Thalia turned in Alan's arms, her gold-flecked eyes meeting his. Through their bond, he felt her complete certainty matching his own. What had started as an accident had become the most important discovery in both their people's histories. Their kiss was both an answer and a celebration, their enhanced bond turning the simple gesture into an overwhelming experience of shared sensation and emotion. The Guardian's presence faded tactfully, leaving them to their private moment. Later, as they lay together in the shuttle's cabin, their bodies and minds still intimately entwined, they began planning their next move. The bond between them hummed with possibilities and shared dreams of adventure. You know, Alan mused, tracing patterns on Thalia's emerald skin that made their bond spark with pleasure. When you first panicked about us being lifelong partners, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen. Thalia's laughter echoed both in his ears and mind. And now I'm thinking it might be the best mistake I've ever made. 6 months after their encounter with the Guardians, Alan and Thalia stood at the entrance of yet another ancient facility, this one hidden beneath the ice sheets of a distant moon. Their enhanced bond hummed with shared excitement as they studied the familiar, crystalline patterns that decorated the entrance. Ready to make history again? Alan asked. Though through their connection, He already knew her answer. Thalia's emerald lips curved into a smile that sent pleasant shivers through their bond. With you? Always. They had chosen their own path after meeting the Guardians, deciding to explore the galaxy's mysteries on their terms rather than following anyone else's agenda. The High Council of Verdant Prime and the Human Alliance had eventually accepted their decision, especially after seeing the advantages of their enhanced bond in action. Their shuttle, now modified with technology they'd discovered in previous facilities, had become both their home and research vessel. The bracelet that had started it all remained on Alan's wrist, though as the Guardians had said, it was now merely a reminder of how their journey began. As they approached the facility's entrance, their bond automatically synchronized their movements. What had once required conscious effort now came as naturally as breathing. Their enhanced connection had grown even stronger over the months, developing in ways that surprised even the Guardians. "Remember our first facility?" Thalia asked as they worked together to activate the ancient door mechanisms. "When you thought the bond was a curse?" Alan laughed, the sound echoing both audibly and through their connection. "Well, you weren't exactly thrilled either. What was it you shouted? What have you done? Now we're bound together forever." "In my defense," Thalia replied, her thoughts colored with affectionate amusement, "I didn't expect a human to be so compatible with our bonding technology. Or so." Her mental image completed the sentence more effectively than words could, making Alan's pulse quicken. The facility's entrance slid open, revealing corridors lined with the now familiar crystalline technology. But this place was different from the others they'd explored. The patterns on the walls were more complex, more intricate. Through their bond, they shared the same realization. This facility was special. As they moved deeper inside, their enhanced connection allowed them to interpret the ancient symbols with increasing ease. This wasn't just another research station or defensive outpost. This was something far more significant. "It's a library," Thalia breathed, her excitement flowing through their bond. "Not just of knowledge, but of experiences. The Guardians' ancestors stored their memories here." They reached a central chamber where a massive crystalline structure dominated the space. Unlike the previous facilities, this one seemed to respond to their presence immediately, coming to life with a soft, pulsing glow that matched their bond's resonance. "Welcome, worthy ones," an ancient voice echoed in their minds. "You have proven yourselves ready for the next evolution of the bond." The chamber filled with holographic displays, showing scenes from countless worlds and times. Through their connection, Alan and Thalia understood. This facility contained the collected experiences of thousands of bonded pairs who had explored the galaxy before them. "The bond you share," the voice continued, "has grown beyond our original designs. You have discovered paths we never anticipated. Now we offer you the chance to add your experiences to this repository to help guide future pairs who will follow your example." Alan pulled Thalia close, their bodies fitting together as perfectly as their minds. Through their bond, they shared memories of their journey. The initial panic, the growing attraction, the battles fought side by side, the nights spent discovering new depths to their connection. Every moment had led them here. "Our peoples are already forming new bonds," Thalia said, thinking of the human verdant pairs who had followed their example. "They're learning to work together in ways we never imagined possible." "And that's just the beginning," Alan added, both aloud and through their connection. "There's so much more to discover." The crystalline structure pulsed in response to their thoughts, offering them glimpses of possible futures. Paths they could explore, mysteries they could unravel, wonders they could discover together. Their kiss was both a celebration and a promise, their enhanced bond transforming it into an experience that transcended physical sensation. Through their connection, they shared not just passion, but a vision of their future. Endless adventures, discoveries, and moments of joy, all experienced together. Later, as they lay together in their shuttle's cabin, their bodies and minds still intimately entwined, they began planning their next expedition. The facility's database had revealed dozens of other sites waiting to be explored, each promising new discoveries about the ancient species and the true potential of bonded pairs. "You know what I love most about our bond?" Thalia asked, tracing patterns on Alan's chest that sent sparks of pleasure through their connection. "What's that?" "That it started with such a simple mistake, you trying on a bracelet out of curiosity. And look where it led us," Alan smiled, pulling her closer. "A best mistake I ever made. Though I have to admit, your panic at the time was pretty entertaining in retrospect. Well, you would be panicked too if a completely unknown alien suddenly became your lifelong partner. Thalia teased, though their bond carried her deep contentment with how things had turned out. Unknown alien, huh? Alan rolled them over, his lips finding the sensitive spot on her neck that made their bond sing with shared pleasure. And now, Thalia breathed, her thoughts merging with his. I couldn't imagine being bound to anyone else. Their enhanced connection turned their intimate moment into something transcendent. Their shared consciousness, experiencing every sensation, every emotion as one. The bond that had once seemed like a curse had become the greatest gift either of them could have imagined. As they drifted off to sleep, their minds still gently entwined, they shared the same thought. This wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Their journey together was just starting, and the galaxy held endless possibilities for two souls bound as one.